Depending on where you are, a very good morning, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleagues and friends. My name is Gabriel Lau, and for those of you who do not know me, I'm from the Teaching and Learning Center from UOW Malaysia KDU. Selamat datang, that is welcome in my local language. It is my pleasure to welcome you to day 2 of the inaugural UOWGE Global Collaborate Conference, bringing together staff from all of UOW's global campuses. I would like to thank you for joining us today, which will be focusing on teaching and learning at each of our entities. A special welcome to some of our guests today, Professor Patricia Davidson, Vice Chancellor UOW, Professor Joe Shikaro, Senior Deputy Vice Chancellor UOW, Professor Theo Farrell, Deputy Vice Chancellor Education UOW, Marisa Mastriani, CEO UOWGE, Jennifer Ng, CEO Asia UOWGE, Professor Wilma Viali, Pro Vice Chancellor Global UOW, Professor Muhammad Salem, President UOW Dubai, Vanessa Bond, President UOW College Hong Kong, Felix Lansley, General Manager, UOW College Australia. Today, we will showcase teaching and learning practices occurring across our global campuses. It's going to be a very interesting day, ladies and gentlemen. In the first hour, we will showcase innovative teaching and learning happenings across our entities. Short videos will highlight a range of projects encompassing collaboration with industry and showcase examples of best practices in student support and online teaching and learning across our campus network. During the presentations, you are welcome to ask questions using the Q&A function, as some of our presenters are joining live and will be able to answer these questions. Please address your questions with the names of the presenters. Collaboration covers many different areas, ladies and gentlemen. However, we have categorized our presentations to 3 subcategories, and they are collaborative teaching approach, collaborations with industry, and transitioning into university and collaborative self-directed learning. We feel that these areas are key and aim for these sessions to be the catalyst that spur and increase collaboration between our entities. The day will conclude with a panel of industry experts representing the 4 countries where our campuses are located. The industry panel will explore the employer perspective and ask the key question: how can UOW take advantage of our global campus network to provide unique teaching and learning experiences that improve graduate attributes? Some housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and will be made available to all registrants. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type these into the question box in your Zoom control panel. During the panel discussion, our panelists will be able to answer and to address this question. Please note, the questions will be seen by all attendees. If you did like to ask anonymously, please select this option before submitting. To the presenters, please note the Q&A box, as there may be questions directed to you. Now, it is now my pleasure to introduce UOW Pro Vice Chancellor Global, Professor Wilma Viali, who will welcome you all to day 2 of the conference. To you, Prof. Wilma.
Thank you very much, Gabe. I'm assuming I'm Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. And I'm really honoured to be able to welcome everybody to day 2 of the conference. I was very excited that the subcommittee that planned this strand asked me to do this welcome, because from the time I could talk and the time I could walk, I've always been a teacher. And many of you know that before I became a university lecturer, I was actually an English speech and drama high school teacher. And I do remember when I took up teaching that people said to me, oh, those who can do and those who can't teach. And that was a very negative view, and also a misquote, actually, of what Aristotle intended. He actually suggested that those who know do and those who understand teach, which is a far more positive view of teaching, as you can imagine. Interestingly, when I became a university lecturer, some of my siblings added something to that, and it was those who can't teach, teach teachers, which I even take more offence of. But my research also has looked at what it is to be an effective teacher. And you could say that your knowledge of your subject, this is what you expect students to say, or the way that you engage, the exciting strategies that you present, that these are all of the kinds of things that they would say. But in my studies of high school students from across the world, Europe, the United States and Australia, the number one quality of an effective teacher was passion. Passion. Teachers who love what they do and love their discipline and love working with young people. That was the most important thing. And as Scott Hayden said, teachers have three loves: love of learning, love of learners, and the love of bringing the first two loves together. And that's something I've always adhered to. Now, in relation to learning, I think more than anything else, as a learner, the most important thing we learn is learning how to learn. And so that kind of focus is always important as well. And again, to quote Toffler, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Certainly something to think about. But it's interesting, isn't it, that we always separate teaching and learning as two separate words. I want to teach you, for those who don't know this, another word. It's Russian, and I apologise to anybody who knows Russian from what will be probably dreadful pronunciation. But the word is obучение, and obучение means the interaction of a teacher and learning. So it's one word that actually encompasses both teaching and learning. And it's present in everything we do as we work together, because as you teach, you learn, and as you learn, you teach. So that collaboration is really important, and that highlights what this conference is all about, is that collaboration. I would like to, as I close my welcome address out, I'd like to acknowledge the members of the subcommittee here. I acknowledge Professor Li Ping Lilian Vrimo Kwan from University of Wollongong College, Hong Kong, Dr. Shamika Almeida from the University of Wollongong, Mr. Christopher Tufnell from the University of Wollongong in Dubai, Mr. Gabriel Lauchi Wen, our host here today from Malaysia, and Ms. Heather Thomas from the University of Wollongong College in Australia. So thank you to all of those people who work so hard on the subcommittee to bring what will be a fantastic afternoon or morning, wherever you happen to be. Please enjoy and please participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilma. Those were very inspiring words. Teaching and learning, learning and teaching, bed buddies. I believe this is something like for all of us, it is an ongoing process, and we will always take heed of that. Thank you. Now is the time that we have all been waiting for. We will now jump into our first set of presentations. To start our presentation for the day, the first group of presentations will be on the theme of collaborative teaching approach. To you, Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen, anyone who has experienced co-teaching can attest to the fact that it is no mean feat for two and sometimes even more people with different personalities, experiences, and teaching styles to effectively co-manage a classroom. The presence of two expert teachers in one classroom does not magically transform a student's learning experience or promise academic prowess for that class. It takes trial, error, and a lot more besides to perfect the co-teaching tango. Now throw in a pandemic that has upended nearly every aspect of our lives into the equation, and we have our work cut out for us. Collaborative teaching and learning in the Department of Languages at UOW Malaysia, KDU Penang University College is not in its essence a response to the adaptive and transformative challenge of the pandemic. Since co-teaching has been the backbone of numerous mobility programs, the department has been running since 2018. Co-teaching is not new, but online collaboration to best support the students and continuity of teaching and learning in these trying times has brought on its own set of implementation challenges and opportunities. Collaboration in this context refers to that within the department between our Penang campus and the Glenmarie campus in Selangor and student collaborative learning. Friend and Cook introduced 6 basic co-teaching models in the 90s. And although parallel teaching featured heavily in our mobility collaborations, it is one teach, one assist that is most prevalent in the current collaborations. Before each semester begins, co-teachers spend time reviewing the course schedule drawn up by the lead teacher. The other teachers, if already familiar with that course, would offer insights. This planning structure helps ensure lessons are created with purpose to benefit the students and keep our workload sustainable. The lead teacher then creates activities and assessments for the class and delivers content. Having one teacher own the full planning of a course allows for continuity and guarantees scaffolding. The other teachers support by clarifying instructions during live sessions, redirecting distracting behavior, monitoring attendance, and handling issues faced by students such as connectivity, digital literacy, and LMS imperfections. Through the lead teacher, all students receive core knowledge, and tutorials with individual co-teachers then help bridge the knowledge and skill gaps that some students may still have. Inevitably, with a large cohort, we have groups that can be unequal in size, but co-teaching helps to ease teacher stress and workload as students' work is evenly distributed for grading. Also, for me personally, having a younger tech-savvy colleague on my co-teaching team is God-given, when keeping students engaged has stretched my technological know-how and comfort level. Common pitfalls that can derail co-teaching include miscommunication, created by not running a plan of action by the co-teacher and paying lip service. There must be professional respect for one another's prior experiences and present needs, which includes being non-judgmental when co-teacher styles or years of experience differ. Parity and respect can be compromised when one co-teacher's input is routinely viewed and weighted as being more valid than the others. And effective collaboration also mandates admitting that we don't know everything. And integral to this is self-reflection. Learning more means looking back and admitting that sometimes things could have been done differently. Reflective practice encourages us to keep up with new practices and strategies and acknowledge that there is always more to discover about learner differences, the curriculum, and indeed one another. Cotton and Morosky 2020 contend that the goal of a successful collaboration is to achieve frith. While honesty and integrity are the pillars of all relationships, including co-teaching ones, there must be flexibility in our thoughts and practices. It takes time for the relationship to grow, but respectful communication in the interim is crucial. This creates a positive learning environment for co-teachers and students alike. The research is clear. Collaborative learning works. With new technologies, we are able to design and adopt new active learning activities. We can interact with the students as they collaborate using any of the Google apps, digital whiteboards, Padlet, Flipgrid, and Microsoft Teams, to name a few. Our efforts to encourage collaborative learning may sometimes be met with resistance. Students may have gone through years of passive learning, which demands less of them in the classroom, and often their first reaction is to complain. But over time, students become more invested in their work. They learn about themselves and they learn from one another. They take greater ownership of and responsibility for their learning. They expect the classroom to be a place of continuous learning and discovery, and they arrive better prepared to meet those expectations. For students, engagement becomes a habit, and for us, we get rejuvenated classrooms and better student outcomes. Emerging technologies allow us to collaborate with others beyond our immediate vicinity. And with proper planning and negotiation, it may just be possible for collaborative efforts to be globally extended and implemented in UOW campuses around the world. Thank you.
Cross-campus capstone project collaborations, lessons learned from the MBA. The case study here is just one small step that we had towards the development of a global MBA program, where the planning commenced back in 2018 with the joint review of our MBA subjects. We were looking towards the globalization of curriculum, explicit incorporation of SDGs, but more importantly, opportunities for the joint development of curriculum, synchronous classes, and cross-campus group work. The pilot that we chose for this was the strategic business project subject, being the capstone of the MBA. Now, this subject had previously been taught effectively in 4 silos across the 4 different locations. We had a client-focused model for Wollongong and Sydney, where Dubai and Inti-KL students were often free to choose their own individual projects, often based upon their own workplaces. With support from a UIC grant, we went about developing one large project with a prominent business that students could work on in cross-campus collaborative teams, with the added incentive that the winning team would get to pitch their research ideas back to the organisation themselves. The organisation that we had for this pilot was Dubai Duty Free, who had unique problems associated with their location and having transit traffic coming through the airport, targeting particular market segments and lagging technology. The challenges were many, from starting with the sessions not having the same start and end dates, changing the dynamics between academics where we traditionally had a quality assurance role only with the other sites, and of course the students had little experience or no experience working with each other, different time zones, and throw in with that often the different cultures as well. Now I'm just going to share some of the video journey.
If you're working in a global business, you're likely to have to face working across different time zones, working with people from different cultures, working with people that you haven't necessarily hand-picked or chosen yourself as people to work with. And that's the reality of doing business. As uncomfortable as it may seem, that's what you're going to be doing in this subject.
Our overriding brief from the government was to sell duty-free product. and be the best in the world at our business. Our turnover is the largest in the world. It's over $2 billion based on last year.
Having the freedom to choose your own adventure and take a real life problem and then actually try and find a real life solution to that was very different to the world of academia, where you've got a framework and then you critically analyse a work by some person or a case study that's already been framed. This was not framed. We are moving to a global workplace. We are moving to quick problem solving.
And I think there's still a lot to learn. I think the finishing of the MBA or finishing of this subject is just the start of my MBA journey.
This pilot was largely a success, which brings us up to where we are now. We're at the point where we have shared global experience and collaboration with our academics across all of our UOW and UOWG MBA subjects. The important thing is it takes different forms in different subjects. Shared curriculum design is quite common. Some classes have synchronous lectures and lecturers dropping into each other's classes, while others have cross-campus group work. We have an MBA industry conference that we co-host across the different locations, as well as co-hosting the Future of Business Conversation webinar series, and also looking at different types of collaborative funding initiatives. But none of this would have happened if we hadn't learnt our lessons. So what were the lessons? The first one is start planning early and establish the relationships. Move away from a quality assurance culture towards a sharing culture where you are sharing the responsibilities of planning a subject in real time. Expect the unexpected, more so from academics than students. And the important final thing is no one size fits all. Academics should know what is the best model that suits their particular subjects, and sometimes we just have to start off one step at a time.
Hi, I'm Abdullah, an accounting lecturer from Faculty of Business and Law. I'm also serving the role of Academic Program Director for Masters of Professional Accounting.
Hi, I'm John. I teach IT at the UOWGE College, and I also teach project management at the Faculty of Business and Law.
Hi, I'm Kat, and I'm a subject coordinator and teacher for the UOW School of Nursing.
Hi, my name is Nikki, and I'm in the School of Chemistry and Molecular Bioscience, where I love teaching a range of subjects, and I'm also a subject co-coordinator.
Hi from Dubai. My name's Susie Robertson-Malt, and I'm the Program Director for Health Sciences within the School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Health.
We're a group of academics who've come together with the support from Wattle to form a cross-faculty teaching circle because we've all have a passion to improve the student experience of online learning. We bring to the circle a vast array of professional and personal experiences that have collectively become a rich and dynamic environment to share and learn.
We meet for an hour each week, and each week one member of the group will lead discussions around our enablers and barriers to student engagement, whilst also critically reflecting on evidence-based literature. We're addressing student engagement, which is at the core of our group's purpose, and this requires our commitment to our own professional development.
Whilst our journey commenced with our focus being on exploring techniques and strategies that enhance student engagement in the online curricular delivery, we quickly realised and were reminded through our own online experience the importance of engaged faculty.
We have been successful in securing a small grant from Wattle towards sharing this exciting journey using a variety of formats, such as this presentation to the UOW global community and the development of a peer-reviewed open access journal manuscript.
The Wattle initiative of teaching circles provided us with the perfect opportunity to practice cross-disciplinary collaboration, which aligns with the core priorities of the University of Wollongong's strategic plan for 2025. So, where to now? Our experience has inspired us to continue beyond the Teaching Circle initiative, but we have submitted a larger teaching innovation grant under the University of Wollongong Vice Chancellor scheme. The sky is the limit! And that's a wrap!
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to present some of the work that I've been doing in the School of Nursing at the University of Wollongong. My name is Rebecca Middleton, and I'll be sharing some work around communities of practice. So a question to consider is, what is a community of practice? And I guess personally, how do you learn best? Do you learn best independently or with others? Communities of practice are groups of people who share a common concern or passion for something that they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. It allows for intentionality. And you can see the three aspects or characteristics that are crucial to communities of practice that are on the screen. So it's around identity, pursuing the interest and engaging in joint activities and discussions, and it's about developing a shared repertoire of resources. And it's a combination of these three elements that constitutes a community of practice, and by developing them in parallel. So just briefly, when I was appointed as Associate Head for Learning and Teaching in the School of Nursing, I set up a strategic plan, and part of that was to set up communities of practice. So I set up three: one for learning and teaching, one for academic program directors, and one for academic investigation officers, academic integrity officers. And this was based on evidence that demonstrates the things that you can see on the screen there, around short-term value for members and for the organisation, and around long-term value. And these are important things to consider. And it's important to consider because we have different perspectives and we see different things, just as you will see different things in the picture that's on the screen. So communities of practice bring different perspectives, but they need cultivation so that members get high value for their time, so that they can work on strategy and goals. And so we set a strategic plan to work towards over 2 years. Communities of practice do need leadership and facilitation, and so I organise and promote the activities at school meetings. I generate research outputs from these communities of practice. They can be informal or formal, but these are part of our school structure now, so they have become a formal part of the school. And they've really been around innovating and solving problems, developing a collective and strategic voice. So we've developed learning and teaching processes within the school. We've developed position descriptives relative to roles, and we've seen case studies that are presented at school meetings to really highlight importance of different roles and things such as academic integrity. Virtual communities of practice can also expand our resources for collaboration and for, irrespective and independent of geography or time zones. All communities of practice that I'm leading have staff from across 6 campuses, stretching across a 500-kilometre distance. But we have common ground that's established irrespective of where staff is located. This has meant that staff profiles have been raised, and I'm also part of 2 international communities of practice, which has developed research, conferences, books, and other outputs. So there's lots of exciting opportunities in terms of communities of practice. I guess to conclude, I'd like you to consider how a community of practice might work in your context. Thank you for your time.
And I'm a lecturer in digital media at the University of Wollongong, and I've taught at Wollongong, Southwestern Sydney and Dubai. Today I'm here to talk through sharing values, sharing media, connecting the Bachelor of Communication and Media across UOW campuses, which is a brief look at our global communication and media degree community. Alongside this, there's an additional materials document on the conference website which maps out the details of all of this much more thoroughly. And I'm presenting on behalf of my colleagues, Dr. Kate Bowles, Dr. Chris Comerford, Maria Fung, Dr. Michael Mallory, and Nagin Chabuk. We have 4 locations with varying rollout of our BCM. We've got Wollongong, Hong Kong, Dubai, and Southwestern Sydney, all at varying sizes and stages. And across these locations, we're developing this online space. We sort of unofficially call the BCM community, and all of us practice making media together. The BCM is a very practice-based degree, and our students study media by making publicly available media. And alongside that, our staff teach media by making publicly available media as well. So out of this, a space has appeared, a little bit by design and in an emergent way, where the students and the staff across all the locations follow each other, interact, collaborate in synchronous and asynchronous ways in both the formal assessment tasks as well as informal ways like a community does. And global collaboration is really baked into the BCM, whether we're under normal conditions, pandemic or not. And this is kind of what I mean by design. So we have a system of common assessment task types in all the subjects. These are here: the digital artifact, the public blogs, the use of Twitter alongside Discord servers for classes and activities. And this system is designed to facilitate global reach and impact by focusing on production of publicly available work. At this stage, the assessment types exist in our major in digital and social media, which is the major available at all the locations. However, many of these elements are finding their way into the rest of the BCM. And each subject has a set of materials that focuses on issues universal to communication and media. And then the students and the staff have immense freedom to work with those topics within the assessment type containers. And then importantly, we use the same subject codes across all the locations, which function as content organizing mechanisms on the public platform. So if you search for any of our subject codes, you'll find content produced by our subjects. And this means that the students and the staff across all the locations can find each other's work, see those different perspectives on the topics of the subjects and connect. And the timing of the delivery of the subjects has some overlap across the locations. So some of us are actually working on the same subjects at the same time. And then on top of that, we have the localization, which is this is the emergent part. And the self-directed nature of the assessments really provides space for work approaches and aesthetics to emerge in each location. They're very reflective of the location. So the things that the students at Wollongong are interested in and then do are distinctly different from Dubai, and then Southwestern Sydney is different again, and Hong Kong different again. So we need to be very attentive to our students and take a student-centered approach to understand them, work out how to shape the local instance of a subject in a way that suits them. So we handle classes in a very non-linear way. We ground things in dialogue, student exploration, imagination, and really connect to what interests them. And then we've got more asynchronous ways of doing that as well, things like Twitter. So on top of that, the students are given lots of space for self-organizing. So there's an active BCM club in Wollongong and one just getting started up in Dubai, and I know that they're talking to each other. So like I said, please see the additional materials document I mentioned. It goes into much more detail on all of these things. And if you have any questions, any of the team here is more than happy to answer. So thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you online soon.
Wow, those were very interesting presentations. Dr. Travis Wall, I believe now you have another opportunity to venture with the Malaysian campus. There is a great opportunity over there, especially with our colleagues from Selangor and also in Penang. And also for our colleagues, Wan Laila, when you're talking about collaboration between your colleagues and also the co-teacher, sometimes we always wonder things such as like, how do you actually define the workload of this of co-teachers, you and your co-teachers itself. Now, dear presenters, there are some questions on the Q&A panel, so please take your time to answer those questions because I believe the participants are waiting eagerly to hear from you. All right. Now, thank you very much. That was very interesting. The next group of presentations will be on the theme collaborations with the industry. Tom?
Hi there, I am Hana Lisa Kamis. I am from UOW Malaysia KBU. I'm here to share with you my experience in collaborating with industry through job shadowing program. As you can see, this is an overview of my presentation. I will start with introducing job shadowing and followed by learning outcomes of job shadowing program. I will also share the feedback that we collected from job shadowing participants and the results of study we conducted on students' performance to measure the effectiveness of job shadowing program. I'm also sharing with you here few photos taken during job shadowing sessions where students were attached to organization. Job shadowing is a 2-session program where undergraduate students experience entrepreneurship by immersing themselves into the real business world. Through this program, students got the opportunity to gain real-life experience. These are learning outcomes that we aim to achieve in job shadowing program. 1, for the students to experience a realistic view of job and workplace. 2, for the students to understand different company culture of organization they attached to. 3, for them to understand how the management theories can be applied to the real world. And the last learning outcome is for the students to explore the career opportunities and build network with future employers or peers. We have collected 2 types of feedback from participants through survey. 1, feedback on job shadowing program itself, and 2, feedback on their learning experience. About the program, students found that job shadowing is informative and they were inspired and influenced by the entrepreneurs. From the employers, we found that students were proactive and responsive during job shadowing sessions. The feedback on learning experience, students found that the program is beneficial for their learning. It helped them to understand the subject better by gaining real-world experience. We also conducted studies to measure the effectiveness of job shadowing program in helping the students in their studies performance. We made 2 comparisons of performance. 1, we compared the performance of participants and non-participants. We found that participants performed better than non-participants in all assessment components of the module. Another comparison is their performance before and after job shadowing sessions. We found that more than 60% of participants performed better after job shadowing sessions. In conclusion, the new environment, new experience in the real working place, get to interact with the owner, and new challenges excite the students and encourage them to speak up, to explore, and prompt them to think out of the box. That's all my sharing of my job shadowing session. Thank you for listening.
The colloquium for fashion business and technology is a long-standing collaboration between UOWGE and UOW. Dr. Zina Teresa Khan from UOWGE and myself, we started collaborating first with teaching and then into fashion business because she's from Bangladesh, and with the Rana Club, she has a very strong passion for ethical and sustainable fashion business. And from my part, being a business ethics teacher and a researcher, I have always had this generic interest in anything ethics. This is a culmination of the first round of study tour that we had in 2018, where 5 students from Australia went over to Dubai, and it was very successful. The Council for Australian and Arab Relations, who funded that tour, the first round, was so impressed that they actually kind of gave us another chance with the second round, and this is that second round. Despite COVID, we are having this virtually in dual delivery mode, where we have a physical audience as well as an online audience. Now, what we have planned for the colloquium for these 4 days is based on ethical and sustainable fashion business. So on day 1, we had a Majlis colloquium back in Dubai, UOWGE, and today we just completed our first session on UW, Australia, by Lynn Ape, who is the founder of Earth Stylist. And then on the main event, where Professor Mohammed Salam will be delivering the keynote, and then we have distinguished speakers, both from small to medium as well as large businesses in the fashion industry, scheduled to talk. And the benefit of this colloquium is the main stakeholder are the students. So students from UOWGE and UOW are going to benefit because, number one, with regard to its cross-collaboration in technology and business. So the 2 faculties will get together for this particular event, and students in our business faculty over here in UOWGE Australia. That's part of their assessment as well, assessment 2, which is a major assessment. They need to attend and engage in the colloquium to do well in that assessment. And the assessment is about an entrepreneurial idea to promote ethical and sustainable clothing in fashion.
Hi, my name is Clayton McDowell, and I'm an Associate Research Fellow at the University of Wollongong's Sustainable Buildings Research Centre, located at the Innovation Campus in Australia. The example I'm going to present today is the Desert Rose House, which was a student-led project where students were tasked to design, build, and operate a state-of-the-art, sustainable, net-zero energy home as part of the Solar Decathlon Middle East 2018 competition. Unique for the Desert Rose is that we also chose to focus on creating a home to address the needs of an aging population by designing the home to be adaptable and to improve the quality of life for people living with age-related disabilities such as dementia. In this project, I was the student leader and project manager from its inception in early 2016 through to the completion of the competition period in December 2018. The University of Wollongong's Solar Decathlon projects, including both the Illawarra Flame House and the Desert Rose House, are perfect examples of projects that provide a collaborative, interdisciplinary interaction that encourages self-directed learning while providing a real-work integrated learning experience with multiple interactions with industry and other stakeholders. This unique interaction between academia, education, and industry included 86 industry sponsors and over 200 students from every faculty in Australia, ranging from business, creative arts, social sciences, engineering, etc. While largely an extracurricular activity, the Desert Rose is an amazing case study and has been integrated into numerous subjects at both undergraduate and master's level across most faculties and research topics for both undergraduate and HDR students. Being that the Solar Decathlon Middle East 2018 competition was taking place in Dubai, this provided a fantastic opportunity for cross-campus collaborations. While our team presented to a number of classes at UOWGE, our greatest collaboration was through the ENG 105 subject, Engineering Design for Sustainability. In this subject, students are provided a client or brief and must work in teams to investigate and develop a design that addresses the brief through innovative and creative thinking. Students must also consider the technical, social, economic, and environmental aspects of the problem while producing a solution that is considered suitable for real-world application. The Desert Rose contains all of these elements, requires input from the majority of engineering disciplines, and is relatable as we all live in a home, thus making it a great case study and easy to integrate into the curriculum. The Desert Rose featured as a case study for UOWGE's ENG 105 class for a couple of years, where my colleagues and myself were involved in giving guest lectures, both in person and online. And we also had the pleasure of having the students present their final designs to us, where we were able to provide feedback. Additionally, during the competition period in Dubai, we were able to welcome the students and faculty members on a tour of the Desert Rose and discuss all of its features. Programs such as these provide real, tangible problems that need solving if we are to have a sustainable and equitable future for all of humanity. These challenges require considerable interdisciplinary collaboration to solve and provide great case studies, enabling cross-collaborations for students from all disciplines and campuses to contribute and learn from one another while developing job-ready skills. I thank you for your time. If you'd like to know more about this project, feel free to check out our website or YouTube channel, which hosts numerous videos produced by our student members on the house and their experiences, or feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.
Good evening, colleagues. Pleasure to introduce our year-long collaboration on professional business practice, our 300-level subject on undergraduate program of Faculty of Business. In this video, we will introduce our collaborative team and provide an overview of our cross-campus collaboration. Our collaborative teaching team included Dr. Flavie Lasrado from Dubai and Dr. Shamika Almeida, Dr. Nabi Zahir from Wollongong. Our team also collaborated with career services units of both UOW and UOWGE campuses and industry experts from Dubai and Australia. So what did we do and how? Our subject emphasizes on placing students in authentic professional workplace, thus embedding work-integrated learning. Accordingly, to facilitate this and to enable them for being employed in both parts of the world, we engaged in co-teaching and co-evaluating student assessments. Making a collaboration truly global, we engaged industry experts, alumni of UOWD and UOW in our subject teaching. They assessed student projects on career vision boards and commented on their leadership approach. When we engaged experts like Group CHROs into our teaching, they mainly shared their knowledge on regional job trends and gave a sense of how it is to be being employed in an international market, and also gave tips on how to be successful as an intern and converting this internship into a job. More interestingly, we also engaged with a former student of this subject. For example, in autumn 2021, a former UOW student of 2015 cohort who currently works as a senior consultant at Deloitte in digital marketing space shared her experience and how her career progression has shaped up following this subject. Providing students a multicultural and a global engaging opportunity, our collaboration included a joint teaching of a tutorial session. We created groups to discuss approaches to responsible leadership and to assess the cross-cultural differences from a perspective of Dubai and Australia. This enabled our students to reflect on the similarities and differences and learn to become global-minded business leaders. Why did we do this? First, our collaboration aligns with UOW's strategic plan, which has goal 1.2 that focuses on enabling our students to be career ready. And next, our strategic plan for the School of Business clearly states the importance of inspiring, engaging, and developing globally minded and socially responsible business students. Our experience from the last 2 trimesters engaging in cross collaboration is well received by our students. Initial feedback of 2 trimesters was promising. Exposing students in a co-learning activity and providing insights as to what it is to live and learn in our co-campus not only enriches students' learning experience but also develops global graduate qualities and values of UOW. We believe faculty gain an increased knowledge of instructional planning, delivery, and evaluation from a new shared perspective.
Thank you to all the speakers. Totally enlightening. We cannot discount the fact that the industry is critical for us, as we want to ensure that our students are accepted by the industry and they have the skills required to prosper in the industry itself. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in the Q&A panel, because there are actually quite a few questions that have been asked and has been answered by the panel itself. Very interesting answers that I believe will be beneficial to all. Now, finally, not the least, the last group will be on transitioning into university and collaborative self-directed learning.
Hello, my name is Jason Hughes and I'm a teacher on the academic program at UOW College. With Anita Goddard and Patricia Majevec, I am also part of the team developing Launch. Launch is a subject designed to help students successfully transition to a higher education learning environment. Aligned with UOW policy and legislation regarding diversity and inclusion, sustainability, and Aboriginal reconciliation, Launch introduces students to the college, focusing on the skills and responsibilities required to thrive at university. Commencing in autumn 2022, Launch is part of the new Pathways Enabling course offered by UOW College Australia. All Pathways students will be enrolled in the subject, which will run over 2 days in week 1 of session. During the semester, 3 touch points in designated weeks will monitor student progress and well-being. These sessions will connect students with available support services at the college, revise critical thinking and referencing skills required for upcoming assessment tasks, and facilitate preparation for final exams and assessments. Recognizing and reflecting upon the completed student journey is important also in the final touchpoint. In addition, touchpoints provide opportunities for students to participate in forums where they can ask questions, make comments, and seek advice relevant to their studies. Connection, support, and responsibility are three main themes that underpin launch, and students will be involved in activities and presentations relevant to each one. Firstly, the theme connection will include a campus tour, getting to know you activities, using UOW technology, diversity and inclusion, and group activities based on the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, or SDGs. Secondly, the theme support focuses on the personal and academic support network available at the college, providing access to services that foster student well-being, engagement, and academic achievement. In addition, the theme responsibility addresses academic integrity, independent learning, and student engagement. UOW College is dedicated to providing an educational approach to skills acquisition, recognizing that students need to be supported to develop and demonstrate the competencies required to succeed at UOW. UOW College is committed to working towards reconciliation. To achieve this, students will begin their university experience with a 2-hour workshop grounding them in ancient Aboriginal knowledge. A local traditional knowledge holder will run the session. The 5 concepts of Aboriginal knowledge covered will be country, kinship, culture, journey, and connectedness. Due in week 12, these concepts of Aboriginal knowledge will form the basis of the final assessment task for the subject. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Judy from the Faculty of Science and Technology, UOW College, Hong Kong. I'm glad here to share some of my experience on how to motivate the students on self-directed learning. As you know, there are many different kinds of self-learning materials, but the point is we have to provide on-time feedback and follow-up actions to the students so that they are willing to continue their self-learning journey. And here are some examples that I have used to my students. For example, item 2, I will ask my students to join some free massive open online courses, or watch the videos, or read some journal papers before the lessons. And they have to come to the tutorial class, and we will have a follow-up discussion on the content of the MOOC course or the video. Or the other example is after they read the newspaper articles or watch the videos, they will have to join some self-paced Kahoot games. So again, we will discuss with the students about the answers and why they will get it done correctly or wrongly. And during the students' learning journey, they may encounter some problems. For example, sort of self-disciplinary actions, or disorganized or lack of motivation. And then we teachers, we have to set a timeline for them, provide them with feedback or guidance so that they are willing to continue the self-learning. So we teachers, in fact, wear many hats. So we are the resource providers. We have to source different kinds of interactive or self-learning materials. And at the same time, we are the organizer. We have to plan the course well, and we are also the assessor. We have to make use of those learning materials to assess the students' learning outcomes. And the other one is we are also the mentor, especially when they find difficulties during their learning journey. So at the end, students will get something back. So for example, they will understand the importance of initiatives. They will also open curious mind, and they will also widen their horizon, create new knowledge and skills. For example, after they join the MOOC course, they realize, in fact, there are many different kinds of courses available online free of charge. And the students will also harden the planning strategies. And last but not the least, they will know how to evaluate and figure out the improvement plan, which is very important for their lifelong learning. So here are the desirable outcomes that we want to see after their self-directed learning journeys. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Nurhayati Zakaria. With me is my colleague, Ms. Sadaf Khurshid. We are presenting a topic on develop a global competency framework for building the sustainability using GPT projects. This is a capstone class where we have both managed for almost quite some time, and we've been doing lots of experiment in terms of the assessments. This particular assessment is built on 3 different experiential learning, and the first one is conducted in the classroom, where we give students to read a theory, then they come in and engage in the scenarios, and then they pitch it to the classroom, and then they flip it again in the online forum discussion. With that, they started to migrate into the tutorial, where they continue to play business simulated games in the way that they are going to be using the theories they understood and then make viable business decisions. In this regard, students are really capturing the theory and the practice through business simulated games. Once they completed this, we had the last breath of experiential learning activities by inviting the industry practitioners with one objective, which is to offer the students insights and also knowledge on how to run business sustainably. With that, we capture all the learning activities through them becoming independent as well as collaborative. Next, I will pass it to Ms. Sadaf.
Thank you, Dr. Nurhayati. I'm going to talk about what actually went well, and this is based upon our observations and student feedback. So it seemed that in the end, we have developed an independent set of collaborative, empowered, and engaged students. They are explorers and experimentalists because they have developed critical, analytical, and problem-solving skills throughout these semesters. They work together, they are self-reliant, and they're also interdependent on each other. They feel a strong sense of empowerment because due to the confidence that they have developed over these EL sessions, they develop different types of leadership styles amongst their teams. It leads to team dynamism and innovative strategies and brings these like minds together. It leads to development of cohesiveness and team cooperation, and the trust that they have developed over the 10 weeks is seen in the projects that they submit in the end. Members are engaged more frequently and they are bonded tightly as GVT. Passing it to Dr. Nurhayati.
Thank you. So what's next for us? We are really looking forward to collaborate for research agenda by making sure that we can develop a strong global competency framework with other UOW collaborators, and therefore we are engaging different kind of assessment in order for us to develop global competency framework. By right, I think what we are attuned to do is we want to develop the sustainability of tomorrow, and the only way that we can do that is really to work with the industry as well as other scholars, so that we know for sure that when we are sending them out to the real world, they are actually getting the right skill sets. With that, thank you so much, and I hope we're going to get more collaborators in the future.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mosquito from UOWGE. Today it's my pleasure to share with you the motivating student collaborative learning after class. I'm sure every one of us will agree that tutorial class is an excellent means to engage students in more group learning. However, it's also limits to a single class experience. So I always ask, would it be possible for students to learn from other tutorial groups without physically attending their tutorial class? Yes, the answer is yes. Because the UW platform could help. Let's see some example. First, one of the assignment in my course, the students are required to answer the forum discussion in a weekly basis. So they can post their answer and also they can respond to the other students. Because it's counted 12%, so the participation rate is 75%, is pretty nice. And then the second assignment they need to do is a news or a story. Each student will be assigned to a particular topic. In each topic, they can choose a particular concept they like, and then select an advertisement or news and discuss how the concept is being applied in the news or in the act, and do you think that is effective or not? So what they need to do is they need to do a 3-minute self-reported presentation and then upload to the Moodle. And then I will consolidate all the presentation video and post under the forum. And then so they can preview all the others' performance and they can answer or respond to the forums and comments, okay, do a peer evaluation on others' performance and whether they agree with examples or something like this. Because it's not counted any marks, so the participation rate is 30%. And then the third assignment they need to do is presentation in a team base. In the semester, they need to do 2 presentations. The presentation requires them to answer the tutorial question for 20 minutes and 10 minutes on their interaction. So they can do whatever things that discussion, debate, exercise, role play with everything in the interaction design to encourage more on the collaborative learning. So in each week, I will consolidate like this. Or I will post all the presentation PowerPoint slide in 4 slides a page PDF file on the Moodle and all the presentation team in all tutorial groups, and then highlight which team is the best. For the best team, I will also upload the presentation video so the people, other students from other class, they can take a look at their performance as a mutual learning purpose. So it's a little bit confusion. So for the forum discussion and the news advertisement story, I think it's a very good means for them to gain more views from other students, and also it's good for me to know students are thinking the ideas, and I also agree for them to review the concept and share example, because it's always good for them to prepare more example and prepare for the exam. And also I think it's very good for them to learn how to evaluate other performance. So the peer evaluation effort is also good. Of course, finally, that will be an excellent means for you to really reflect, do a self-reflection on others' thinking, my thinking, and do the comparison. However, the forums is 75%, okay, but another news story is only 30% because it's not counted to marks. So then the implication to me is marks versus no marks is definitely a very strong motivation. So then I'm thinking about what are the ways to encourage students to do more is the peer pressure. Start from week 6, I introduced a performance chart for the voluntary forum on news and on story, and then since then more people are willing to participate. Maybe they will see that, oh, other people are participation, okay, I fear of lacking, then I also need to do something. So, and then for the presentation PowerPoint, it's very good for the students to learn others' good performance, learning the presentation skill and the interaction skill. So that is always true that seeing is better than anything, right? So so they can see their performance, so they can really learn from others' excellent work. And I see a very significant difference between the first and the second presentation, more interactive, more creative, okay, more participative. So so that's why I see that it's pretty effective. Okay, so that is the end. Thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about a globally transferable model of peer learning support. My My role at UOWGE is that of the coordinator of the peer learning program. I set up the program in 2008 and it has expanded and morphed since then to suit our students' changing needs. The program is multifaceted with in-class tutorial help, known as PAT, as well as some outside of class assistance known as PALS and PAC, which Byron will allude to a bit later, our third presenter. The main component of the program that we're looking at today is that of peer-assisted tutorials, or PAT. Basically, this involves having a peer learning leader, in this case a peer assistant tutor, in the tutorial classroom with the teacher, so that students have two people to consult instead of one. Now, this idea came from a conference I attended in 2016 from Victoria University. My colleague Eileen will now explain the PAT model from her perspective as an academic skills, subject coordinator and teacher.
Thank you, Jan. Hi everyone. My name is Eileen and I've been teaching for over 10 years, mainly on a course aimed at mature age domestic students who want a pathway into a degree at the University of Wollongong. Peer-assisted tutors are former students who assist in the tutorial and encourage student engagement in the tutorial and tutor-peer-leader collaboration. The PATs assist the students and teacher within the tutorials by helping with discussions and assisting with classroom exercises. And particularly since moving to online delivery, their role has increased in that they are made co-hosts on the Zoom tutorial. They can assist with breakout rooms in encouraging discussion, and they can share their screen where appropriate and give individual assistance to students. In terms of help to the tutor outside of the class, they can give feedback on specific difficulties that students are encountering and give input into designing appropriate class materials. Overall, the PAT has given the tutor greater assistance in what sometimes has been an environment laden with a level of anxiety. The PAT system has been an excellent way of encouraging student engagement and tutor-peer leader collaboration. I would now like to introduce my colleague Byron, who will explain the PAT model from the perspective of a peer-assisted tutor. Thank you, Byron.
Thanks, Eileen. My name's Byron, and I was the first peer assistant tutor at UOWGE, taking part in the pilot program in 2016. I've gone on to provide support to students in academic writing, history, social science and maths across our diplomas and bridging programs. One benefit to the students of having a PAT in the class is having the presence of a non-authority figure that some may find more approachable. We've got an extremely varied cohort at UOWGE, and giving students who may not be comfortable approaching their teacher another option means we can get them the help they need sooner. We can also give students the perspective of a university student. All PATs are current students or recent graduates, so we can answer questions students may have about what transitioning to university is like and what they can expect when they get there. Another major advantage is the rapport we get to build with the students. I often work with the same students across multiple subjects, and becoming a familiar face to them means they're much more likely to attend our peer-assisted learning sessions outside of class time, as well as request individual peer academic consultations. All this has led to a huge uptake in students engaging in these optional sessions. More than 60% of students engaging with us outside of class time over the last 12 months. So this means that on average, in a class of 20 students, 12 would attend a PALS session, with 2 seeking individual packs from us. And so that's it from us for today. Thank you for your time and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you all. There was a question earlier on regarding the use of the Discord and how popular is it among students. I can attest on UOW Malaysia KDU, where one of my colleagues in the School of create computing and creative media, they actually use Discord as the main communication channel with their students, and it has been very, very successful. I think one thing that we need to understand is the whole portal itself. Discord was basically used as a way of communicating by gamers, for gamers, and thus for the School of Computing and Creative Media, what happened is their students actually adapted to the whole portal itself, to the system, like fish to water. So it was very, very effective. I'm not saying that it'll be effective for all schools or departments, but for that particular school, it was very, very, very effective. So thank you all to our remarkable speakers. This is testament on the academic strength between our campuses. I think you all will agree with me of that. Now, we will go ahead and begin the industry panel discussion. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel. Okay. The industry panel will explore the employer perspective and ask the question, how can UOW take advantage of our global campus network to provide unique teaching and learning experiences that improve graduate attributes? The discussion will be led by Professor Theo Farrell, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Education at UOW. Professor Farrell is responsible for advancing innovation and assuring excellence in all aspects of curriculum design and delivery at UOW. Currently, his portfolio is leading capability development in digital and online learning, work-integrated learning, lifelong learning, and learning analytics. I will now hand over to Professor Farrell to introduce our panel members and facilitate the discussion. Professor Farrell, to you.
Okay, colleagues, are we ready to start the panel?
Yes, Prof. The floor is yours.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to join the Global Connect conference, and it's been a real pleasure this afternoon to hear all of these presentations around, particularly focusing obviously on work integrated learning with regards to students and collaboration across all the different parts of UOW. So we're now moved on to the industry panel discussion. And the purpose of the industry panel is to, well, we're hoping to do three things with this panel. The first is that we want to understand employer perspectives across Australia, Hong Kong, Dubai, Malaysia, on the relevance of self-directed learning, collaborative work practices and well-being in modern day workplaces, and obviously when employers are thinking about hiring graduates. The second is that we want to understand whether universities are focusing on the right skill development for the future of the workforce. That's obviously very important. And thirdly, we'd like to consider how UOW can take advantage of our global campus network to provide unique teaching and learning experiences that improve graduate attributes. And I think one of the great things about what we heard this afternoon are already the many ways that colleagues are collaborating across UOW to provide some unique experiences. It's a real advantage we have with our campuses across the world. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do now is just invite each of our panelists to introduce themselves in turn. And let me start by thanking them most warmly for joining us this afternoon, because we know you're all very busy. We appreciate you giving up your time. And indeed, we appreciate so much that you do for us already. So if perhaps I could just turn first to Yelena, please.
Hi everyone, so lovely to be connecting with you all today. My name is Yelena. I'm a former alumni of the University of Wollongong. I'm now working as a senior consultant at Deloitte Digital. So I studied law and commerce, and I'm working within a team that largely focuses on digital transformation. So we do a lot of work with public sector, as well as private, across government, legal, telco, most industries that you can think of. And yeah, we're really there to help businesses take them on the journey of digital transformation. We do a lot of strategic and also implementation work. So implementing technology, but also doing, strategic things like strategies, whether it's content, customer, user experience, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's me.
That's great. Thank you, Yanla. Perhaps now I could turn to David, please.
Good afternoon, and thanks very much for the invitation. I must thank all the presenters this evening. That's been most informative. I'm the CEO of an organisation called MWLP. We provide work placement for years 11 and 12 HSC students that are undertaking vet courses. We work with about 80 odd schools and place about 6,500 students annually with host employers. So we're the connector between the student and the host industry employers. I'm an alumni of the Uni of Wollongong. I'm a fellow of the University of Wollongong. I'm chair of the Honorary Alumni Chapter. I was the first Doctor of Business Administration to graduate from the university in 2009. And I look forward to providing some input.
That's great. Thank you, David. Perhaps I could turn to Chris now, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. My internet's a little bit unstable. I'm actually in Brunei at the moment. Thank you for the invitation and the very interesting presentations we've had this afternoon. I've been working for 30 years in the field of museum design and heritage and interpretive planning. And that's meant that I've worked with large and small organizations and often involved in forming teams and working across different cultures for clients ranging in terms of their culture, but also in terms of the topics and subjects that we have to present to the public. So much of it is public presentation of complex subjects as digestibly as possible. I am a professor of practice in the social sciences faculty in Hong Kong, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Chris. And finally, if I could turn to Kevin, please.
Thank you, Prof, and also the committee for the invitations. I'm Kevin from UOW Malaysia Schedule. Currently, I serve as the functional HR lead for the institutions. And I was an academic in the past before I actually ventured into the real HR practice, because I wanted to put into applications what I've learned in universities into a real practice of the HR world. And I'm finding there's a vast difference between the theoretical perspective and also the actual practice when we really put all the theories into the real knowledge and also applications in the workplace. And I've actually moved across various industries from consultancy to hospitality and currently in higher education. So I'm able to see the differences and also the similarities of what we wanted to put the best of the HR practices in the workplace. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And I should have actually introduced myself, I realize. My name is Theo Farrell. I'm a professor at the University of Wollongong, and I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Education. So I know we're gathering some questions that people on the call have, but I've got a question. I think it's a really burning question, perhaps for many of us. It would be great to get perspectives from our panel, which is how do you think the pandemic has impacted on the types of skills that are needed in the workforce? And as you're mulling that over, perhaps we'll just follow the same line as before. So start with Yelena, please.
Well, this is definitely a very interesting topic, and I think we're all talking about, the impact that COVID has had on ways of working and what that looks like now within industry. So from my own personal perspective, and I guess what we're seeing as a consultant, we were largely client-based. So that would mean that we would be full-time at our clients' offices Monday to Friday. And that was really our way of working, and that was how, that was what the expectation was. But obviously with COVID and the shift to working from home, we had to very quickly adapt to not being there face-to-face with our clients and leveraging, tools that we're using like today, Zoom, Teams, and basically take our ways of working that we normally did face-to-face and online. And with that obviously came challenges. First it was just understanding, how to structure your day in the digital world, because, we were very used to our sort of, our being able to, tap our clients on the shoulder and, have those connections or moments in the office. I guess, on a more ad hoc basis, whereas now it became a bit more structured. So I guess, you know, in terms of the skills that you need or that we're looking for in a digital world, not a lot has changed. I think you still need to be, you know, focusing on building your communication skills, your presentation skills, because ultimately you're just kind of behind the screen now, right? You still kind of need to have or be able to establish those relationships with your clients, whether it's in person or behind the screen. So I think, you know, we're not discounting the importance of these skills just because now we've got these pieces of technology that are helping us work differently. But I think the way that you showcase those skills has changed a bit. So before it was body language and how you present yourself, standing confidently, you know, not fidgeting when you're presenting. But now it's more etiquette online, you know, making sure that you're not sort of speaking on top of everyone, you know, watching the different screens to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, also leveraging functions like the chat functions to, you know, get insights from people when we're, you know, delivering large workshops. So it's just about adapting what we're normally used to in a real life setting in a digital sense and really leveraging the tools that we've got. So I think students have had a real taste of this, given that they've, you know, been learning online for most of the pandemic. So we're really expecting, you know, new graduates coming into the firm to already be really well equipped with this new way of working. Because as I said, it was a big shift for consultants in the way that we work. But in saying that, you know, we were still able to work extremely productively in a digital sense as well. So I think if I can summarize that, you know, don't discount the importance of what you learn in an in-person setting. It's about how you build and adapt on that in a digital, with digital tools.
Thanks, Yelena. I love that observation around online etiquette. Really interesting. As a fidgeter, you know, I think tonight's been terrific. David, if I could turn to you, please.
Yeah, sure. One of the big issues I think that has been created by the pandemic is the inability for people to paint a picture of the future. Those normal things that occurred, particularly with HSC students, you know, having their farewell, their trial exams, their final exams, heading off on schoolies, the idea of knowing that they're going to get into university or go off and get a part-time job. That level of uncertainty that's there, I think that disruption is something that people really need to be able to deal with. I think that's a skill that people need to be able to focus on. In terms of our requirements, I think we're looking at people that are becoming more creative and innovative in terms of what needs to be done in the job area, in particular moving into the virtual side of things and coming up with innovative ways to doing that. As well as that, I think it's important the lifelong learning skills that they need to continue and align themselves with the very practical element of work, because we've moved out of that particular alley. Working via Zoom is not as practical. It's you're not as involved with individuals in that sense. So the practical side, being able to deal with disruption and you know, those innovative skills that need to be developed and resilience, they're the things that we're looking for.
Great. Thank you, David. Chris, perhaps I could turn to you, please.
I don't have an awful lot to add to what Yelena and David has said. I mean, in terms of the creative process that takes place, I think that it has been a challenge for people in the creative industry to work over Zoom. It's actually meant that we've all had to be more organized, I think, because the time that you have to present, get your ideas across is much more limited. So you have to be really organized. You have to be really to the point. And so I think in terms of presentation skills and communication skills, those are absolutely vital, and probably the medium has honed those by necessity. But I think for creatives and people in creative industry, there's the pleasurable process of that grey space that you have when you're working on a project and you're in the same room with people and you're or you're in the coffee shop. You know, it's that intangible being together and mulling something over that I think is hard to replace. And so, you know, if someone could find some tool by which we can all virtually hang out in a wine bar or a coffee shop and creatively collaborate, that would be great. But I think that is still something that in the creative industries we miss.
Thanks, Chris. Great observations. Now, I know, I can see Kate Bowles is on the call, but I know from her and her team in the BCM, there's various online tools they use to support collaboration. But I think, Chris, your observations are really important because, you know, I think one of the challenges we have in work today is that, you know, it's by meeting in person and the kind of kind of chance things that occur through meetings that create innovation. It's a real spark of innovation. But you know, there are online tools, but I think it's more challenging. I would accord to that observation. It's really important. Kevin, turn to you, please.
Yeah. So thanks to the panelists has given their very good inputs on what are the skills that the employees are actually looking at. But what I just wanted to add on is the flexibilities and also the adaptabilities of the employees themselves. How can they actually change their ways of thinking when they're actually moving from face-to-face jobs to a more virtual kind of mode of operating? Yeah, in the past, they've been so engrossed in the ways they've been doing the same thing again and again. But when it comes to the pandemic eras, we have to move to virtual platforms, we have to work from home. That comes the real challenge. Some of them just do not know how to switch and to switch effectively. Yeah, and like what we actually experienced in the past is that we are so used to face-to-face interactions, we share files, we actually realize a lot of paperwork. But when we move to a virtual platform, for example, I'm actually managing payrolls, to actually screen through, okay, a stack of documents via online and how to actually ensure the data authenticities and also securities is there, pose a very great challenge to the persons who sending it and also the persons who are actually retrieving and also checking those data. I think the main cause that we are actually facing and we need to prepare ourselves is how well are we being equipped to actually address all these uncertainties when we have to work it differently. Yeah, that is more important. And secondly would be the abilities to actually manage stress. Yeah, so when we talk about fostering well-being, I think the psychological and also the emotional stress that someone has to actually work from home, okay, far away from their colleagues, okay, facing the same walls and with a lot of engagement at home. For example, they have to actually manage the young kids, and also sometimes the spouse are not being so understanding, not even helping in the house chores, would actually pose a challenge. And you have to meet a lot with the tight deadlines, okay, meetings after meetings. So that also actually gives us a time to actually reflect how well can we actually manage stress when we work differently. Yeah, so that is my input to add on to what my fellow panelists have actually shared just now.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think you're echoing in some respects what David was saying around resilience, the importance of resilience.
Yep.
And I reckon all of us on this call recognize the kind of scenario that you're painting, which is the challenges we now face when work and non-work have merged into one. There don't seem to be the clear boundaries. So it's very hard to actually turn off from work. It's very hard to have that space you might have previously had through the commute, which lets you decompress and helps you manage stress before you return to your home environment. And so now obviously it's much more challenging. That's, you know, really, so I think that's a point we're likely to be returning to. Just to say to people, really encourage you to please put questions in the chat, and Chris is going to bat them across to me. We've got a question here around, for employers, really, and I'm going to start with Kevin and go in reverse now, really get a sense of, you know, to what extent should we be, you know, or to what extent do you value extracurricular experiences that are outside the classroom over traditional learning experiences? So, I mean, at UOW, we've got a great program called UOWGE, which encourages students to develop extracurricular skills and experiences. interesting enough, last year, because we were in remote delivery, we had a very significant decline in UOWGE activity. And so it'd be really interesting to get your sense of, when you're looking at hiring someone, and indeed when you're working with someone, to what extent are you thinking, okay, those extracurricular activities are really important, real value adds, makes them shine, or to what extent are you very focused on, what they've learned in the classroom and their academic record? So Kevin, perhaps if I could start with you, please, first.
Yeah, I think the real competencies is actually being tested, not really through interview, because interview is only very surface, I would say. For example, so I throw up a questions to a marketing graduates. I asked him a questions. Yeah, if you were to be given an assignment to actually tap the East Coast market, now Malaysia is actually segregated into East and West Malaysia, so we have East Coast market. How can you actually come up with a plans, okay, to bring in students from the East Coast, because there is always a challenge to the recruitment team. And surprisingly, he actually obtained A in his strategic marketing, but he was not able to actually give me any simple plan. Okay, I don't actually expect a very solid strategic marketing plan, but we talk about 4 C's, we talk about 6 P's, we talk about a lot of marketing theories. I just wanted to tap his mind on, okay, how can he actually come up with a proper plan to bring in students when he looks into costing, when he looks into plans, when he looks into initiatives. But oftentimes students are not able to put, okay, their knowledge into real practices. I do not want to judge about the outcomes first, but more importantly would be the thought process. I think it's a lot of times we are lacking in our Malaysian graduates, and UNICE is actually putting a lot of initiatives to actually help them to think critically, and at the same time to give them opportunities to provide viable solutions. And that is how we are able to assess our students in their assignments. But when they actually comes to real interview and when they are actually grabbing for a job, that is the real competencies that actually takes place. How could they actually react and respond accordingly to the questions posed by the interviewers? I'm not saying that they are not good, they are good, but how well could they actually apply at the material time when they are being given such assignment or such opportunities?
Great, thanks, Kevin. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's enormously important to have extracurricular activities in your CV or in your experience. I mean, if I as an employer was looking at 2 CVs, almost identical in terms of experience, and the portfolio was very similar in standard, I'd be looking at what else is that person doing. And I think that's because in the workplace, there are a lot of characteristics and values and aspects of personality that you need that perhaps a university can't always teach, as it were. I actually went out when I knew I was going to be on the panel and sort of sent out emails to senior managers and CEOs I know to ask these sorts of questions, and got some responses. And one of them put it like this, that they're looking for aptitudes, which is the skill side of it, and attitudes. And I think it's the extracurricular side which demonstrates those attitudes. We, in the workplace, very highly priced things are confidence, resilience, as we mentioned, risk-taking. I mean, risk-taking is a hard thing to simulate, but depending on what the extracurricular activity might be, it could be empathy, and the demonstration of empathy, the demonstration of a sense of competition. So all those things are very transferable to the workplace, and would certainly be looked for by an employer.
Thanks, Chris. And indeed, in UOW, as part of our mission statement, we're seeking to empower students for whatever future they choose. But by that, we mean that they're both life ready and as well as jobs ready. And the two are of course, interrelated. So I think those are, really important observations. And it's true that some things we can't teach students, but we can open their eyes to the kinds of things that employers are looking for and give them every opportunity. So what I'm going to do is just, in fact, if David and Yelena, I'm sure you've been thinking of answers, but if it's okay, because the questions are beginning to fly in, I'm going to flip and ask the next question and ask both of you to reflect on the next question. And then come back to Kevin and Chris for the question that follows. This is often the way where people slow to start and then the questions come flying in, but I want to give a chance to everyone who's asking questions to have an answer. And I think there's a great question here around, you know, as employers, as we think about going forward. See, traditionally, it's the assumption has been that if somebody's coming with a degree that's from an online provider versus a degree that's coming from a brick and mortar university, that you'd be privileging the more traditional degree, and that somehow online degrees were seen as less valuable because, you know, the person wasn't learning in the classroom or perhaps didn't have practical skills. But to what extent actually is that still the case? Or to what extent has the COVID and the pandemic changed everything? That in a sense, online learning and people who might have mostly learned online, those learnings and that degree is worth as much as somebody who's spent 3 years slogging away on campus. David, perhaps you could offer an insight.
I wouldn't see any difference between both of them. I spent 30 years in the recruitment industry, had my own recruitment organisation. I worked with a large corporate, Alcoa of Australia, doing all their corporate recruiting Australia-wide for graduates. Just the diversity or the different forms of delivery that's available nowadays, the person is still committed to doing it. If they're doing it online, they make a commitment to do it. They've got to put their time away to do that. They've got to, let's say, disregard their family for a while. Family time's not available. I wouldn't distinguish in any way between those two, and I think that most employers would be doing the same. They'd be looking at the person and what that person can bring in terms of their worldliness, I suppose. Just cutting back to that other question about these extracurricular activities, you know, you will take all of those sorts of things into account because they might be doing online programs because they're working full time. So I wouldn't see any difference or any preference either way.
Right, thanks, David. That's a great question. That's a great link to the previous question. So perhaps, Yelena, you could just reflect on the whole thing, because you relatively recently have made the journey from university into employment, and what you think the things where employers were looking for, and maybe just offer some insight, please.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with what David said in terms of holistically looking at, you know, the graduates. So for me, I think, you know, obviously I had the degree and I had the marks, but it was, you know, my work experience that I had done, my internships, my paid work that I was doing. So, you know, all those things, when they come together, they demonstrate to an employer that, you know, you are sort of able to juggle things. You're getting real life exposure. You know, you're engaging in extracurricular activities. They all play a really big role. And I think, you know, having just the degree in this market and the competitive nature of the market, especially if you're aiming for those top firms, really it's not enough. You've really got to demonstrate your ability to be involved in some of those extracurriculars, whether it's, you know, maybe it's something like if you've identified a gap in the market and you've got, you know, a side hustle, as we like to call them, or something that you're doing on the side where you've identified a problem and you're solving it. It can be anything. You've got a blog, you're doing some mentoring, really something that demonstrates to the employer that, you know, you are thinking more broadly about your degree and what that means. Because like I said, it's about the holistic sort of view of that graduate and all the things that they're doing that are relevant to that job. And something else that I also wanted to touch on was relevance again. So I think if we're looking at traditional versus bricks and mortar degrees, it all comes back down to the job that you're applying for. So I think it's really important to always tie that back and always tailor your resumes and your, you know, your conversations to your experience. So your experience to that job, so that the employer can clearly see the linkages as well. So I don't think it makes a big difference. And again, yeah, I think it's definitely about all the things that graduate's been doing through the duration of their degree to learn.
Great, thanks, Yelena. Okay, so we got another question which I think is really very, really important, and given today's conference, which is around how important is a sense of global citizenship within your companies? And in particular, you might expand that to how important is it that graduates have experience of working in intercultural global teams, intercultural work, some experience of intercultural working. Here, we can think of, for instance, the cross-campus capstone project, the MBA that there was that great presentation on earlier, which, to what extent should we in UOW be doing a lot more of that to get students working across our campuses? And that's actually really difficult. It's actually very difficult to do. That's a very impressive project that was presented. So to what extent we should be investing more energy in that? So I'm going to let's start with Chris, because Chris, what perhaps you could offer perspective.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I've been working across culturally for sort of 30 years, and it's become more and more the an area of study, and it's certainly something that UOW is very well placed to be a leading light on. And I think that we need to remember that there are cultures within teams, and we're talking whether that be nationally or in terms of disciplines, the backgrounds, and the type. Just if I relate it to my own experience, I am often working between subject experts who may be scientists and with a team a client team who may be on the other side of the world, whether it be Dubai or the UK or Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the design team may be based in Hong Kong or the UK, and again coming from a mix. That's not to say all that design team is British or Hong Kong. They may be from different cultures and nations themselves. So I think there's still a great deal of work to be done, actually, in terms of trying to define what we mean by culture within those teams, and how to negotiate and navigate those things, be sensitive to them, but also ensure that there is productivity at the end of the process, and that I think that, as you said, the MBA cross-campus project was very interesting in that respect, and to ensure that there's it's not simply a matter of being sensitive, culturally sensitive for its own sake. It's about how to ensure that yes, that happens, but that at the end of it, there is a product and a deliverable, and I think it's that kind of more pragmatic study of cross-culturalism, which I think UOW could do a lot on.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's a really terrific observation around how culture is not just national and ethnic, but of course it's disciplinary, it's profession. I reflect my own experience working in Afghanistan in teams that combine military officers, diplomats, and development officials. And I can tell you, you couldn't encounter 3 more different cultures. That was really interesting experience, and not without its challenges. So Kevin, perhaps we could just turn to you and get your insight in this, please. Kevin, you may be on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, when we actually work with people from diverse locations, okay, in a very global arena, the most important thing is that we need to have is respect. Yeah, we have to respect the differences, and we really need to be open about our expectations, and do not have that kinds of the ethnocentric mindset that I'm more superior than you, and maybe the ways that I'm doing things is so much better compared to yours. Yeah, because we have to acknowledge that there are always differences due to our cultures and also religious background and how we are being brought up to. And very importantly is we need to have a lot of conversations going on, and how do we actually address those differences, even when you use certain how do I say the terminologies, okay, in our workplace, or when it comes to audit perspective, that also differs. Yeah, but what is more importantly is that are we able to get things done, even though we are from diverse locations? That is more important to me. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Perhaps actually, we've got a bit of time. Perhaps we could also, I think this is so important for today's theme, which is around obviously global connections. It'd be great actually also to get David and Yelena's insights on this. So David, perhaps you could offer a view on working interculturally, but also globally, and the extent to which that is now so fundamentally important or not for employers.
Sort of global, the globalization area. I think I tend to be grounded in the sort of context of things. One of the things that I think is enormously important is sort of context, and context creates complexity. And when you think about cultural diversities or activities in that area, the sort of context in which one individual works in and works very well in, they might not do so well in another context. You've often seen individuals that have done extremely well as a CEO in one organization. They're headhunted by another organization, and they're a disaster. And the reason for that is that the context is completely different. You think about all of the locations that we have here. The context, although we're all part of UOW, the context of each of the campuses are different, and that really creates some issues and some challenges for individuals, I think. But the actual opportunities people get from working in different environments and different contexts, provided that their abilities match those sorts of things or those sorts of activities, it should work. But I think context is really so important, and it's probably the thing that does complicate activities and roles that people fill in different locations.
Yeah, thanks, David. And of course, that's why it's so important that we create opportunities for students to be in different contexts and to actually stretch themselves and to be in contexts that are challenging. And I think it also goes, I mean, for me, the Desert Rose House Solar Decathlon, led by Professor Tim McCarthy, such a fantastic opportunity for students to really get in a very challenging context. And it speaks to also the point Chris was making previously about working also in interdisciplinary contexts where you've got people from very different cultures, in that sense, professional cultures.
Yep.
Just lastly, Jelena, perhaps you've got some insights?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I was very lucky when I was studying. I actually got to experience, go overseas as part of my degree, as part of COM 390, and work in Malaysia with some fellow UOW colleagues to solve, a real life business problem. And I think that whole experience was so enriching from a number of perspectives for me at the time. So I was in my penultimate year. It really elevated my overall sort of experience and really set me apart from different candidates. And I know this for a fact because, it was something that they mentioned to me. But I guess in terms of some of the great benefits of, being able to have these global experiences, that cross-cultural exposure, working with people from different cultures within a business setting. So learning about, the different business rules and, how things work in a culture that's different to your own. I think, it really shows your adaptability and your willingness to kind of learn and adapt to different cultures, which is not something that you can necessarily get, on your own soil. So I think that was a big one for me. For that particular trip as well, it was working with students from a range of different disciplines and degrees. So, how we all came together to help solve that one business challenge, I think played a really big role in shaping, my desire to want to be a consultant, because really what consulting is constantly solving different business problems. So from that point of view, it was really helpful as well. And really I think it's a great thing to be able to promote, across the university as well, some of these success stories from students that have done these experiences and what that means. I know my sister, for example, she is studying at UOW at the moment, and she enrolled in a global course as part of her commerce degree. And unfortunately, due to COVID, they weren't able to go. But I just thought that is the best thing. That is really great for our students, to have these opportunities across all the different campuses and get that exposure across all the different countries. I think it's an amazing initiative, and I think definitely, you know, more focus needs to be put in this space, because I think there are a number of different benefits that come along with it, not only for the individual, but also their chances as well in securing employment in the future.
Thanks, Yelena. So a final question then, just we only have a few minutes left, and is we've got four people with, you know, obviously employer perspectives in front of us. You know, if there's one thing in UOW that we should do to empower our students for the future, what would be that one thing? What is the thing that we should focus on that we're not, you think we're not currently doing, that we should do more of, or we should start doing and we're not currently doing? And perhaps I could start with Kevin and then work backwards. So Kevin, please. It's a big question, I'm sorry.
I think it's the seed fund. Okay, seed fund, because we are trying to actually build the entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, that is something that we really need to encourage. We don't want to talk about, like, for example, what is the outcome first, but how much encouragement and the resources that we make it available for our students to try out something new. Yeah, so it's the seed funding, which I think is important. Okay, it might start as a very small amount, okay, depending on the size of the projects with the guidance of the academic team. I think this is something the institutions can do, because eventually, if the ventures turns out to be successful, it can actually generate a great source of revenues to the institution, and we can even patent it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Thanks, Kevin. And I absolutely agree that we can do a lot more around supporting student entrepreneurship and student entrepreneurial education experiences. So that's great. Thank you. Okay, so turning to Chris, please.
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, I think there's no substitute for experience, and I think that is what employers are really looking for. Many of my respondents said they don't really see value from their new graduate employees for 2 or 3 years, and I think that if the UOW could show to employers that that period is reduced by providing real-world experience, then I think that would be a great commodity. I mean, it's really a question. I think that the programs that we've heard are really going in the right direction there, and it's creating that transition between what is quite a nurturing environment, I think, in terms of the university, creating a transition space out of the goldfish bowl of a kind of quite nurturing environment into the shark tank, which is the commercial world. Going back to design companies, a lot of design companies are SMEs. They're small. They may be only 10 people. They might be 20, 30 people at most. And very quickly, you're in a very shallow hierarchy as a new graduate, and you're expected to hit the ground running. And you may well be in your first week in a meeting with the CEO of the company, expected to give ideas, defend ideas without being defensive. So opportunities to develop those sorts of skills, I think employers would look very favorably on it.
Thank you, Chris. I love that. Providing a transition space between the fishbowl and the shark tank. I think that's absolutely. I might steal that. That's fantastic. We'll make sure to credit you though. So just a couple of minutes left. David, over to you, please.
Okay. Just one thing. Job readiness, I think, is really important because they've, they've done their study, done all their practicals, but being job ready is really important. And I've had an experience this year of employing 2 marketing and comms grads from UOW. It worked out well, but they're just not job ready. That working in the job environment, we see so much of that with a lot of the high school students as well that are out on vet placements. So that job readiness is really important.
Great, thank you, David. And finally, Yelena, please.
Yeah, I think, let's leverage our industry partners in more creative ways. So bringing more of the real life to university degrees. So in addition to, industry experience, which to David's point is, fundamental, being job ready, I think connecting with our industry partners to bring more context to assignments. So, you know, leveraging them to understand, you know, what are some of the business problems that you're facing at the moment? And, you know, how can we start to get our students to think about these and, you know, start to get them thinking creatively about ways that we can solve them? Because, you know, problem solving isn't just for the execs, you know, everyone has a perspective to bring. And I think that critical thinking can start at any level of university, can even start, you know, in primary schools. So I think bringing more context to assignments, I think that for me was probably a big gap. So understanding what's actually happening in the world and leveraging your theoretical knowledge as well as, you know, any work experience that you've already had. So really connecting it all up.
Great, thank you, Yelena. So we're just coming to the end of our industry panel. And I mean, I think we've picked up a lot of the themes that have been discussing today around self-directed learning in terms of students and students having to be more obviously adaptable and have more organizational control in the new world, and the importance of fostering resilience and well-being in students because of the issues we talked about in terms of the challenges of working now in the COVID world, but also more importantly, the importance of collaboration skills, presentation skills in terms of the digital environment, and critically the ability to work in different contexts, in mixed cultural environments, and I think these themes around, you know, that Kevin was mentioning about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial skills, and the themes that, you know, all of you have been emphasizing around real work experience, leveraging industry partnerships, work integrated learning, these are big priorities. So in terms of what I'm doing in my portfolio, we're really leaning into work integrated learning in a big way. And we're also going to be leaning in quite a big way in terms of entrepreneurship. So it's really great to hear, you know, so thank you so much indeed to Yelena, to David, to Chris, and to Kevin. It's great to have perspectives from so many different industries and life experiences. It's really, I think, resonated with us academics, a lot of where we are at. And I think the presentations we saw this afternoon, you know, with the cross-campus MBA, the solo decathlon, for instance, and also the energy we saw in the Wattle learning groups. You know, I think what you've been telling us today really resonates very strongly with the direction of where we're going. So thank you so much indeed for sharing your insights. And I think now I think I'm due to hand back to Gabriel, please.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. Farrell, for moderating the insightful session with the industry panel. I totally agree with what David said regarding job readiness. I think that is one of the key reasons why the students come and join us, to be ready so that we will give them the skill to be competent and be ready for the industry itself. So that is key for the role that we play as an institution of higher learning. Now, that brings us to the end of today's proceedings. We have heard on the challenges, opportunities, and best practices of interinstitutional collaboration. We marvel at the strength of Wattle, were amazed by the merits of job shadowing, humbled by the staff dedication on peer learning, and was enchanted by the Desert Rose. All in all, I believe a clear success. We appreciate you being here. Any questions that we didn't answer today will be sent through with a copy of the recording in the days following the event. We, the team of the Teaching and Learning strand, would like to specifically thank Prof. Wilma, Tom is our main hero at the back end, and the technical team, for without their advice and assistance today would not have materialized. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you tomorrow's session on exploring students' mobility. Again, terima kasih, that's thank you, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.